Okay, we are back. Hopefully the sound is a bit better this time. If that's the case, could you let me know in the wee side comment box here? Okay, I think we are good to go. So let's go back to the library briefly and look at our instance variables here. So sound is worse. Oh no. Okay, let me change my settings one more time and see if we can improve it. Okay, I've switched the settings. Can you let me know if that's any better at all? Okay, well, we'll go with that for the moment, I think. And that sounds a bit better. Good. Um, yeah, I'll look into actually getting a wee mic, or maybe the next time I'll try doing this in the living room, which shouldn't have as much echo in the room. Anywho, in the meantime, let's get back to looking at our library. So our library has three properties, one of which is the capacity, the number of books that this library can possibly contain, and that's just a normal integer. We've got a collection which is storing all of the book instances that are in this library's collection. And we've got a genre hash map which, although we can't actually see it, would look something like this. So it would be like uh, romance, 10, sci-fi, 20, that kind of thing. So that's what our genre hash map would actually look like. Okay, so when we add a book to our collection, that's just a simple process of adding it into that array list. Um, we also need to add to the genre hash map. So as we're adding a book to the library, we want to get that book's genre and update our genre hash map. So here's how we do it. So first we do a bit of conditional logic and we say if the genre already exists in the hash map, extract the existing count and assign it to the variable counter. So if this dot genre hash map dot contains key genre, so remember we're getting genre as a property of book. So basically I am checking my genre hash map to see if it contains a key which matches the genre of the book I'm currently adding. And if it does, then the counter equals what the value of that key currently is. So say I've got 10 romance novels in my library and I try to add another romance novel. This will pass because the genre exists within a hash map, and I will be creating a new variable counter based on how many romance books I currently have. So if we're saying we've got 10, counter will be 10. So since my new book is also romance, I'm going to increment that counter by 1. And then I'm going to change the value of that key value pair. So I'm going to go to the romance genre, the romance key, and replace the counter with my new incremented counter. Now, if when I do the conditional logic, my genre hash map does not currently contain that genre, then we add it to the hash map. So if this book's genre is a new one, like I don't know, non-fiction, then non-fiction as a key does not currently exist within my hash map. So what I do is put it in. So here I'm instructing it to put in a new entry in the hash map, and the key is the genre of the current book, i.e. non-fiction, and the quantity that I have is therefore 1. Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes to catch up and ask any questions on that one, because to me that's kind of the trickiest part of this. Peter mentioned that he missed getters and setters. So let's just quickly go over that. So in my book class here, when I set this up, I knew that it had to have a title, an author, and a genre. And I knew that all of those things would be passed into the constructor and attached to the class in there. Now, because these instance variables are private, at the moment there is no way to read or write those instance variables. So I have to provide a means of doing so by creating getter methods and setter methods. So the getters read the property and the setters update it. And fortunately, with the IDE, this is a very easy thing to do. So wherever you want to add the functions, you press Control Enter, and you'll get this submenu up. And I'm going to go to getter and setter, and I'm going to highlight all 3 of those properties, and the IDE automatically creates those methods for me. So yeah, just looking back to the questions, and John Pulley was asking if the library is an array list of objects. And yes, indeed, it is. So it's an array list of actual instances of the book class. Okay, so I think the auto command, Lizzie, was Control Enter. Okay, so the next thing to look at was adding a third class, uh, which in this case is a borrower. So this is the person that's going to be borrowing the book from the library. So um, the borrower has two instant variables. One is a string, which is just their name so that we can identify them, and the other is an array list of book objects called collection, just the same as the library has. And again, I'm going to initialize that array list inside of the constructor, just like we did in library. Now we could, in theory, have created an array list somewhere else, populated it with book objects, and passed it in populated, but it wouldn't make much sense in this context because when you build a library, you don't build the books in with it, you add the books at a later date. And you could argue it's the same principle with the borrower. Okay, something is continually beeping in my laptop, so can you let me know if you can hear that and if it's a problem? Assuming it isn't, let's carry on. I think it's my power connection. Hopefully that's sorted it. We were always going to have issues today, but hopefully we'll get this smoothed out. I shall try and get an actual microphone headset and then charge CodeClan for it, and hopefully we can get this a bit better sound, a bit running smoother. But we'll get better at it as we go. Has the beat gone, everybody? Can you let me know if that's working? Okay, beep is gone. Hallelujah. Okay, so our borrower class is fairly simple. So let's see how it interacts with the library. Now, uh, as we discussed yesterday, there's really only two ways that we can make two distinct classes interact with each other. Sorry, I was just reading the questions there. And the first of those is to have an instance variable which is an instance of another class. So inside our river class, we had a collection of fish populated with instances of another class. That would be one way of allowing those two things to interact. The other is to pass an instance of the other class into a function as an argument, which is what we're going to do here, because it wouldn't make much sense to have our borrower as an instance variable on library, because we would need potentially thousands of borrower instance variables. Makes much more sense to pass it in to the function or pass it into the library at the point that it needs to interact with the borrower. So when a library wants to loan a book, for example, we're going to pass in the book that we want to loan, and we're also going to pass in the instance of borrower that is borrowing that book. So the first thing we do is check if the book actually exists within the collection. And again, we're just doing that by saying if this dot collection contains the book, then we're going to remove it from our library's array list. And we are going to add it to the borrower's array list. So we're not actually removing and passing to borrower the same instance. We could return this dot collection dot remove as a variable or assign it to a variable. So we could have said something like this. Could be, no? Okay, maybe not. Ignore me. So basically, we are removing that from the collection and we are using the book as passed in as an argument to add to the borrower. We can also check if a book is in stock. So here we're going to loop over our collection. So we're going to check on each iteration of this loop, we're going to call the current book individual book. And we're just going to see if it matches exactly the instance of book that we've passed in. And if it does, it returns true. And if it doesn't, it returns false. And the other thing we're doing is checking the genre frequency. So we pass in the genre we're interested in, and we use that as a key in the hash map to get back the number of books we have for that genre. So that's kind of a rough rundown of it. I'll take a couple of minutes pause here to let people catch up and submit questions, and I'll try and address those questions. Okay, Gus has asked a question. How about having a borrow book instance method on the borrower and passing the library object and book title to it the other way around? And yes, that's perfectly acceptable. Ultimately, as the designer of the application, it's up to you which class is responsible for which actions. So you could argue each way that maybe the library should be responsible for lending the book, or maybe the borrower should be responsible for borrowing the book. The outcome's the same. I would say whichever way it makes most sense to you in your head is the way to do it. Shaheen has asked a question about could you explain constructor like we don't need every private property to refer in constructor. So I think by that you mean can we have a property that we've declared that we don't reference in the constructor? And the answer to that would be yes, but we probably wouldn't do that. Um, if we are using variables which are not instance variables, i.e., they're not attached to the class, then we would create them where they're needed. So here, for example, I'm creating a string to capture the genre of this book, but it's only used within this function, therefore it's declared inside this function. The reason that we're declaring these at the top of the file is because we need the whole file to be able to see them. So Gus has asked the question, within a function we don't use private or public, and that's correct. We only declare private or public on variables which are attached to the class as a property, as an instance variable. So a person classes height, a library classes capacity. These are things that are attached to the class itself and therefore need to be defined if they are public or private. But anywhere else throughout the file, whenever we create a variable of some description, we're not concerned with privacy because it's not available outside the class by default. Okay, I'm not seeing much else coming through. So this code will be posted up on Canvas momentarily, so you can pick it apart at your leisure. In the meantime, I shall show you today's lab. So we're going to spend all day at this, so this would be a good opportunity if there's something you're not sure about, if you something you think you don't quite get, to get in touch with one of us for a one-to-one so that we can help you out. So here is today's lab. Code Clan Towers. So we'd like you to build a booking system for the new Code Clan Towers hotel. Use TDD in JUnit to model the hotel with Java classes with separate test files for each class. So we need a guests class to represent a visitor to the hotel. So they'll at least require a name, and you can add more properties later if and when you feel they are necessary. We're going to create two different types of rooms. So bedrooms will have a room number, a capacity, a collection of guests, and a type. And conference rooms will have a capacity, collection of guests, name, and any other properties you want to attach to it. We're going to create a hotel class which has collections of rooms of different types. So your hotel would have an array list of bedrooms and an array list of conference rooms. And the hotel will be able to check guests in and out of rooms. So you could do that by adding a property to your room that you attach a customer to, or you could have a property in customer which tracks which room they are checked into. The extensions are to create a booking class which contains a bedroom and a number of nights booked. There we go. Create a book room method in your hotel, and this should book a given bedroom for a number of nights and return a booking object. Add a nightly rate to your bedrooms and write a method to return the total bill for the booking. If you get all that done, we can add functionality to the hotel so it can return a collection of only the vacant bedrooms. Update the check-in process so that the hotel will only be able to check guests into empty bedrooms. Okay, so start small. Make your guest, make one of each of your bedrooms, test them, then start making your hotel and testing the basic stuff like the hotel has rooms, has the correct number of rooms, etc. And then start thinking about the more complicated stuff. And I would suggest that you build this in the manner that makes sense to you, rather than a manner that I would prescribe to you. So add classes or add properties to classes as and when you think necessary. I've just got a question that I didn't notice earlier about why are we not using the main method here. Um, and that's because we are not actually running our library as an application. We are just testing a class. So if I wanted to make a runner which provided like some command line interactivity with the program, like it gave me some options like press 1 to add a book. Um, in that case, I would need a main method because that would be the entry point into my uh, application. But as is at the moment here, we don't actually have an application. We just have some classes which are tested. So that's the difference. You'll see that going forward as we start to build runners with our apps. But at the moment, and also for today's lab, you don't need to worry about a runner. You just need your classes to have functionality, and that functionality is tested. Okay, so if everyone is reasonably happy with that, I think I'll call it here. Niall is asking who would like to do the lab paired, and we can pair you up together. I think it might be a good idea to try it. If your internet connection is slow, or you just want to have a bash at it yourself, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to do it in pairs, then please do so. And as and when you get stuck or you've got a problem, um, put a request into the classroom channel, and one of us will send you a link for a WebEx meeting where we can share screens and explain things better. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too bad for you. Let's get back together as a class at, let's say, 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock. We'll see where you are near the time, and we can go through the solution to this. Okay? Alright, thanks for tuning in. Hit that like button.